Artem watched Sofia as she slept. Moonlight through the window traced silver contours on her face, and he felt something close to reverence. They had been together for 3 years, and these feelings hadn't faded, they had only deepened. He remembered their first meeting at the cafe, when she spilled her latte and he, laughing, offered her his. He remembered how they dreamed of traveling to Italy, sitting on a bench in the park. Everything seemed so ideal, so whole. He was an engineer, a man of facts and logic. She was a designer, a free spirit who could find beauty in the smallest details. Their apartment was filled with light, plants, and her paintings. Artem believed he knew every one of her traits, every habit, every expression. He was convinced their happiness was a solid, well-designed structure, impervious to any storm. How wrong he was. The next morning, while getting ready for work, he accidentally brushed against an old leather-bound book on the top shelf of her bookcase, nestled among novels and art albums. He had never paid it any mind, thinking it was just another sketchbook. But the book fell, and a few old photographs and a dried rose spilled out. Artem was carefully gathering them when his gaze fell upon the open pages. And there, in Sofia's clear, elegant handwriting, he saw words that would forever change his world.
Today, everything was as if in a fog. Met with Oleg at that old museum. He knows so much about painting. He talked and I listened, amazed at how one could feel art so deeply. Artem was never truly interested in this. He just looks and says, nice. But with Oleg, with him, I feel like I'm flying.
Artem froze, unable to believe his eyes. His heart, calm just a moment before, began to pound with such force that he could feel his temples throbbing. Oleg? Who was he? And what did "met with" mean? Carefully, like a thief in his own home, he picked up the diary. This was not just a sketch pad. It was a key to a parallel world in which his girlfriend lived, a world whose existence he had never even suspected. And he couldn't stop. He slowly sank to the floor, his back against the bookcase, and began to read.
The words on the page cut like a knife. They didn't just describe another man, they created an entire parallel reality. A reality where Sofia was different, more alive, more vibrant, more happy.
Met at the Glass Dome Cafe today. Artem thinks I'm with a client. Meanwhile, I'm sitting with Oleg, laughing about something stupid. When he touched my hand, it felt different, gentle but intense. He looks at me like he can see right through me.
Artem felt his chest tighten. He remembered how Sofia had come home yesterday with bright eyes, talking about a tiring but successful meeting. He told her to get some rest. In all that time, she'd been laughing with another man, feeling his touch. His stable, predictable world was fracturing. Logic, his most trusted tool, was failing him. How is this possible? How could she share their home, cook their meals, watch movies with him, kiss him goodnight, while her mind was somewhere else entirely? With someone else. He read more entries, each hit like a physical blow.
Walked through the park today. Oleg told stories about growing up in Odessa. Such warm memories. Sometimes I feel like Artem and I are stuck in a rut. Work, home, sofa. Everything's so predictable. But with Oleg, every moment feels like an adventure.
Rut. The word burned. Who created this rut? Him? Both of them? He'd been working to build their future, making plans. And to her, it was just a sofa. A sudden rustle came from the bedroom. Sofia was waking up.
Artem moved like he'd been burned, shoving the diary back on the shelf and grabbing the first book he saw, an architectural volume.
Artem, what are you doing?
Her voice was thick with sleep.
Artem, fighting to keep his voice steady.
Nothing. Just looking for a book. Heading to work.
He left without meeting her eyes. His mind was reeling, yet through the pain and shock, another feeling emerged, a desperate need to know more. It was like willingly drinking poison, knowing it would destroy him, but powerless to stop.
Artem was completely distracted at work all day. He saw numbers on his screen, but his brain refused to process them. Instead of blueprints, he saw words from the diary. Flying. Sees right through me. Adventure. He began to analyze. Oleg. Who was he? From the entries, he seems to be from the art world, maybe an artist or a curator. They met in museums, at exhibitions, in quirky cafes. The same places Artem had invited Sofia to, but she'd always found an excuse to decline. Now the reason was clear. She was already visiting them with him. He tried to recall any suspicious details from recent months. Working late, new friends he only knew in passing, a sudden need for personal space. All the things he dismissed as work stress or normal relationship friction now took on a sinister meaning. Returning home, he watched Sofia with new eyes. She was cooking dinner, syncing along to music. Before, this scene filled him with warmth and comfort. Now, he saw only an actress, playing the role of a happy girlfriend. Every smile seemed deliberate. Every touch felt calculated. She noticed his strange behavior.
Are you okay? You seem distant today.
I'm fine. Just tired. Work.
He couldn't bring himself to say more. He was afraid that if he opened his mouth, he'd scream, "Who is Oleg?" That night, after Sofia fell asleep, he took the diary again. It felt masochistic, but he couldn't resist. He had to know the whole truth, even if it destroyed him. He plunged back into reading like a man falling into an abyss and found an entry that became the final blow.
Today was scary. We were walking in that old park and I almost ran into my friend Katya. My heart dropped. I looked away, hid my face. Oleg laughed and said it added to the adventure, but I wasn't laughing. If anyone finds out, if Artem finds out, he's so kind. He trusts me so much. Sometimes I'm gnawed by guilt, but then I look at Oleg and that feeling disappears. With him, I feel alive, like I'm waking up from a long sleep.
A long sleep. Their relationship, their shared life, their love. To her, it had just been a dream, and Oleg was the alarm clock that woke her up to her real life. Artem felt nausea rise in his throat. He wasn't the man of her dreams. He was the warden of her prison, and that thought was the most painful of all. He closed the diary. Sofia's pangs of conscience offered him no comfort. It was like trying to kill someone and then feeling sorry about the mess on the floor. He couldn't read any more. He had to know who this Oleg was. He had to see him with his own eyes.
The next week, Artem moved through life in a daze. He had become a detective in his own life, hunting the ghost who had destroyed his world. He checked her phone while she showered, finding several unknown numbers, but none saved as Oleg. He scoured her social media, searching for comments from men, likes on old photos, any trace. Nothing suspicious. She was careful. But now he was careful too. He had memorized the locations from the diary: the Veterans Museum, the Glass Dome Cafe, the old botanical garden. He began visiting them after work, spending hours in futile surveillance.
He felt insane, a stalker haunting his own girlfriend. Then one day at the Glassstone Cafe, his persistence paid off. He sat at a table in the back when he saw her enter. She was radiant, wearing a bright dress he'd never seen before. Beside her walked a tall man in a light, casually expensive-looking jacket. He was saying something, and Sofia laughed with her eyes closed, just as freely and genuinely as she used to laugh with Artem. This was Oleg. He looked exactly as Artem had imagined, confident, with relaxed gestures, the gaze of a man who knew his own worth. They sat by the window. Oleg took her hand in his, and Sofia didn't pull away. Artem sat hidden in the shadow of a column and watched. He saw them talk, saw her tilt her head, saw him touch her shoulder. It was a horrifying, cinematic spectacle. He was the director, the cameraman, and the sole audience of a film about his own destruction. He felt no anger in that moment, only a vast, all-consuming emptiness, as if something vital had been ripped from him, yet he felt no pain, just a cold hollow and the sensation of wind whistling through the void. He left without waiting for their date to end. Driving home, he understood. He knew now. The ghost had taken form. The war had been declared, but he was the only one who knew it.
Now, with a face to put to his enemy, Artem wrestled with his next move. What should he do? Confront her? Create a dramatic scene? He imagined himself shouting, demanding explanations, throwing things, but the image felt like cheap melodrama. He didn't want to be the emotional hysteric. He wanted justice, but what kind?
He kept reading the diary, no longer searching for new names, but trying to understand the mechanics of the deceit. How did she do it? How did she fold two parallel realities in her head?
Artem had a tough day today. He came home exhausted. I couldn't even look him in the eye. I made his favorite dessert, tried to be attentive, and I felt so disgusting. But then a message came from Oleg, just a single emoji. And suddenly everything felt light and easy. I know it's wrong, but I can't give up this feeling.
Artem felt nauseous again. She was feeding him dessert while her mind was flying to another man, to some stupid emoji. He was her obligation, the difficult trial after which she could receive her reward, and Oleg was the reward.
One evening, she came home with flowers, a small bouquet of wildflowers.
These are for you. I know you've seemed worried lately. Wanted to cheer you up.
He looked at the flowers. They were beautiful, but his mind instantly conjured a suspicion. Did he give these to her? Did she bring them home as a souvenir from their secret meeting and simply put them in a vase to avoid raising suspicion?
Thanks. What's the occasion?
Oh, no occasion. Just because.
He nodded and walked away. He couldn't accept those flowers. They smelled of betrayal. This lie was poisoning everything, even the simplest, sweetest gestures. Their home had become a stage, and their life a play where he was the only one who didn't know his lines. He knew he couldn't go on like this. The emptiness inside him began to fill with something else, a cold, steely resolve. He wouldn't shout, he wouldn't beg, he would make the truth reveal itself, and he knew how to do it.
Artem devised a plan. It wasn't about revenge in the traditional sense. It was a cold, methodical experiment. He wanted Sofia to feel the full depth of her own deception. He became the director of his own life, preparing for the final scene. He started with small things. He became more attentive than ever. He asked her about the details of her workday, about client meetings, feigning interest.
How did that presentation at the art gallery go? You said you were nervous about it.
Oh, it went fine. As expected.
What was the curator's name again? You mentioned him before. Ivan, was it?
He knew the curator didn't exist. He watched her eyes dart momentarily, searching for an escape. She would weave a convoluted story, and he'd listen with a faint, barely noticeable smile. Catching her in a lie gave him a strange, grim power. He also began changing his habits. He came home unexpectedly early. He said he had a business trip, then canceled it. He created unpredictable situations, disrupting the usual rhythm of their life where secrets could so easily hide. He saw how she nervously reacted to his every unusual move, how her phone, always on silent, now lay face down on the table. Once, while she was in the shower, a notification appeared on her phone from OO. The message was brief. "Tomorrow at the usual place? Miss you." Artem's heart pounded again, but now it wasn't from pain. It was from anticipation. The hunter sensed his prey was near. He knew where they would be tomorrow. The usual place was that same under-the-glass dome cafe. The time had come for the next act of his performance. The next day at 5 o'clock, Artem was already sitting in the cafe, this time not in the shadows, but at a table near the entrance. He ordered coffee and waited. He was calm, like the stillness before a storm. At 5:30, they walked in, Sofia with Oleg. They were laughing again, absorbed in each other. They made their way to their usual table by the window and didn't even notice Artem. He waited a minute, letting them relax, sink into their illusion of happiness. Then he stood up. Each of his steps was measured and firm. He approached their table.
Sophia, what a pleasant coincidence.
They turned. Confusion appeared on Sophia's face first, which instantly transformed into pure, animalistic terror. She turned pale, as if she'd seen a ghost. Oleg furrowed his brow, trying to understand the situation.
Artem, what do you...
Artem, very nice to meet you. And you must be Oleg? Sofia has told me a lot about you.
That phrase was explosive. Oleg looked at Sofia in surprise, whose eyes were filled with sheer panic. He probably thought his name had never been mentioned in their home.
Yes, likewise.
Don't worry, I won't be long. I just wanted to thank you in person, Oleg.
For what?
For making my girlfriend so happy. She's been absolutely radiant lately, as if she's woken up from a long sleep. You have no idea how happy I am for her.
He said these words without a hint of irony in his voice, with a sincere, barely noticeable smile. But for Sofia, they were like knives. He was quoting her own diary. He knew everything. She couldn't bear his gaze and lowered her eyes. Oleg looked confused and disoriented. The scene he had imagined as romantic had turned into an incomprehensible nightmare.
Well, I won't disturb you any longer. Have a nice day.
He nodded to both of them and turned around. He walked out of the cafe without looking back, leaving behind a silence saturated with shock, shame, and fear. His heart wasn't pounding. It was as cold as ice. The first part of his plan was complete. Returning home, Artem felt no triumph, no relief, only a vast, exhausting emptiness. He had done what he needed to do. He had exposed the lie without even raising his voice. He had behaved like a gentleman from a cheap novel, but inside, everything was devastated. He waited. The ticking of the kitchen clock sounded incredibly loud. He thought about what was happening at the cafe right now. Their accusations, tears, maybe even a fight.
He almost felt sorry for Oleg. He was now part of a game whose rules he didn't understand. Sofia arrived 2 hours later. She entered quietly, wordlessly. Her face was distraught, her eyes red and empty. She stopped at the living room threshold, not daring to approach. The silence stretched on. It was thicker than any words.
You read it?
Yes.
Artem answered, looking out the window.
Everything?
Enough to understand everything.
Artem, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened.
He finally turned to her. His gaze was heady.
Don't lie anymore. Please. Just don't lie. You knew what you were doing. Every time you went to him, every time you texted him, every time you thought about him while lying next to me, you knew.
She collapsed helplessly onto the sofa, hiding her face in her hands. Her shoulders trembled. He didn't approach, didn't try to comfort her. His compassion had burned out completely.
I love you, Artem. It's true.
No. You love the comfort I provide. You love the stability. You love the idea of our relationship, but not me. Because how can you love a person and simultaneously build your happiness upon their ruins?
He didn't speak loudly, but each word fell like a stone. He wasn't shouting about betrayal. He was talking about respect, about trust that cannot be glued back together, about two realities that could never become one. That night, they slept in separate rooms. The door between them was closed, for the first time in 3 years. Artem lay staring at the ceiling, listening to Sofia cry through the wall. But even these sounds didn't cause him pain, only a calm, final certainty. This was the end.
The next morning, the apartment smelled of coffee and unbearable tension. Sofia sat at the kitchen table, looking gaunt, her eyes empty. Artem stood by the window, watching the city wake up. His decision was final, like a verdict.
What are we going to do?
You already decided everything with your actions.
Can't we just leave it all behind? We can try to fix this. I'll cut off all contact with him right now.
He finally turned. His face was calm, but his eyes held such coldness that she instinctively looked away.
Fix it? How do you fix what you felt? How do you fix the words in your diary? How do you fix the way you looked at him in the cafe? You don't understand. The problem isn't you and Oleg. The problem is you and me. The version of our relationship in your head was so far from reality that you needed a whole other life to escape from it.
He moved closer, but not to touch her. His movements were economical, precise.
You said you love me, but love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. It's the decision to be faithful, even when it's hard. It's the decision to talk about problems, not run from them into someone else's arms. Every single time, you chose to run.
Sofia was silent. All her arguments, all her denial shattered against this cold, unconditional logic. He wasn't accusing her of falling in love with someone else. He was accusing her of living a lie for months, robbing him of his right to the truth and to a free choice.
I'm moving out. Today. You keep the apartment. It's yours.
No, Artem, please.
It's not up for discussion. I can't live in a space where every corner reminds me that my life was an illusion. I can't breathe this air.
He went to the bedroom and started packing his suitcase. Only the essentials. He took nothing that reminded him of their shared past. No joint photos, no gifts. He was leaving it all here, along with the ghost of the man he used to be. Sofia watched him from the doorway, powerless and broken. She saw her world crumbling and understood that she had been the one to destroy it. No amount of tears could change anything now. When he closed the suitcase, he paused for a moment by the door.
I wish you happiness, Sofia. Sincerely, I hope you find what you were looking for.
Those were the last words he said to her. They sounded not like a curse, but like a final, parting act of compassion. And that was the most painful part. Anger might have given her hope for reconciliation. This calm, final kindness left her with nothing. The door closed. She was left alone with the silence and the ruins of her happiness.
6 months had passed. Artem drove to the new house he'd rented on the other side of the city. The first weeks had been the hardest. The emptiness he felt initially was terrifying. He felt hollowed out, as if recovering from a serious illness. His trust in people, in the very concept of relationships, had been shattered. But he didn't let himself collapse. He didn't seek oblivion in alcohol or casual flings. He focused on himself, on his work, where he could now channel more energy, on an old hobby, playing the guitar, which he had abandoned years ago, on early morning runs when the city was just waking up. He started seeing a therapist, not because he couldn't cope alone, but because he wanted to understand how it had happened. Were there signs he had missed? Was it his fault that Sofia had chosen the path of betrayal? The therapist helped him understand a crucial thing. His only fault was trusting too much and failing to see the obvious. But the blame for the betrayal, for the lies, lay solely with Sofia. He learned to forgive, not her, himself. Himself for allowing this story to break him. And that thought brought liberation. One day, while sorting through old boxes, he found that very diary. He had taken it with him that day, not knowing why. Now he held it in his hands. The book no longer caused him pain, only a sorrow for the people they once were, who no longer existed. He didn't burn it or tear it up. He simply carried it out to the trash bin, like discarding an old, worn-out pair of shoes. It was part of his past, but it held no power over his future. He stepped onto the balcony of his new home. The air was fresh and cool. He took a deep breath. For the first time in a long while, he felt not emptiness, but peace. A quiet, profound peace of someone who had endured pain and found the strength within to move forward. He didn't hate Sofia. He had simply let her go, along with her diary, her lies, and her Oleg. His life no longer revolved around that story. He went back inside, closing the balcony door behind him. On the table lay the blueprints for a new project. He had plans. He had his life, and it was only just beginning.
This story didn't have a happy ending, but it ended correctly. Because sometimes the bravest and wisest act is not to fight for something broken, but to have the strength to let it go and move on.